Welcome to Travel Unraveled. Join me each month as I sit down with friends, fellow world travelers, and experts of all kind to discuss any and everything about travel. This month's guest is my lovely sister-in-law, Oksana Gearheard, formerly Oksana Rudenko, and she is a realtor for Coldwell Banker in Silicon Valley. Sister, welcome.
Hi, Blake. Thank you.
Say hi to my handful of followers.
Hi, everybody. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's nice to have you on here. I've wanted to interview you for a while. You have a very interesting and unique perspective that I think a lot of people will find interesting, I hope.
Thank you.
So let's dive right in. You are from Ukraine.
Yes.
Born and raised, even genetically tested to be a pure blood Ukrainian.
99%.
Yeah,
Pure.
so, I mean, that's wild. It's pretty tough to say no one in your ancestral pool has ever left that region.
I know. It's the most boring DNA test results, I think, you could get.
Just
Everybody
one
tells me
color.
that. They're like, it's boring.
Well, it's unique, though. So,
I love it.
on that note, when did you first have the idea or the belief that you wanted to come to the United States?
Yes, I would say probably around when I was 18. I was working for an international company at that point, and my boss was German, and I had to use a lot of English for my work. And that's where I felt like, okay, my English is not good enough to feel confident. So I set a goal for myself to improve my English, and I started taking a lot of classes. And what I found was nothing was good enough. I had a hard time learning actual language. There wasn't enough native speaking teachers or practice. And when I was 20 years old, I was working for a hotel, really nice hotel in Ukraine. It was a 5-star hotel. I had a great position there. And I also had to use a lot of English every day, pretty much. And that's where I really decided, okay, I need to do everything to just master English. And I realized that pretty much the only way to do that is to be submerged into environment. So either go to London or anywhere in America. So I'm not crazy about Great Britain.
The people or the food or what?
The weather is pretty much the only reason, I would say, but that's a big one. That's a big factor for me. I just don't like foggy, rainy, cold days all year round. So I've just kind of set my eye on USA. And some of my colleagues actually have been traveling to USA for a few years by then. And they've been just telling me so many fun stories and facts. And I just got I think I fell in love with United States before I even got here. So that was it. I knew where I had to come to learn my English, and the rest is history. I could talk about that forever, I guess.
So, well, that was another question of mine is like what kind of information did you grow up with about the USA? Do you have it in the media? Is it music? Like, what are people believing about Americans in Ukraine?
Pretty much everybody has different perspective. Me, myself, being kind of like post-Soviet Union child, I would say. I was born in 87, so Soviet Union was done, I think, 91 or 92. That's kind of like was the time where we were seeing the difference. And I would say older generation was kind of brainwashed that, Soviet Union is the best, everything has to be Russian and all that. So I grew up watching a lot of Soviet performers, as far as music goes. It was only Soviet music. But a lot of it, what I didn't know then, was copied from American music, actually. I don't know how they did it, what was the way they were stealing American music, but a lot of melodies I hear these days just bring me back to my childhood. I recognize sounds, I recognize beats and everything. So that was it. So that was like older generation was all pro-Soviet, but my dad, he traveled a lot for work. abroad, and he was bringing all this like how do you call those big things for music?
Oh, like records, LPs.
Yes. They don't exist anymore, I guess. But
No, they're super
or,
popular again.
all right,
It's like
okay,
a
vintage, right?
hipster retro vibe again. Yeah.
Yeah. So my dad had a bunch of that stuff. It was all music like American, British. Like I listened to Michael Jackson and all that stuff.
Pop
Here and
hits
there.
and
So
stuff.
yeah, a lot of pop stuff. So I was a little bit exposed more than probably others, I would say. But later in life, I think America was something kind of like, unreal for us because we were used to just being where we are. People from Ukraine have to stay in Ukraine. People from Russia have a hard time leaving country. There was a lot of persecution going on toward people who were trying to leave the country. So I think it was kind of something that people would always fear, but on the back of their mind, they would dream to be here,
Well, and maybe financially have difficulty.
Absolutely, yes. So, when I was an adult, I just got so excited about the idea of coming here, and I can't say it was easy as well. It wasn't straightforward, go ahead, buy a ticket and come. It was kind of a hard, process as well.
Yeah. So describe to me your process of immigrating.
So yeah, I guess it's different for each situation. There are different ways to come. For myself, there were only two programs that allowed me to come. One of them was where students come for like a month or a few months during the summer break, and they just work like in McDonald's or just other food chains, kind of like summer jobs in order to like improve English. That was exciting, but I don't think I fell under that program 100%, and there was risk for me to get denied. So another option for me was to apply through au pair program. That's a program where you come as a nanny, as a visitor, and you live with the family. You take care of their kids for 45 hours a week. And the rest of the time, you could go to college, you could just hang out with people, you could pretty much do whatever you want. So that was actually a pretty great option for me. It allowed me to live with the family, feel safe, secure, and just, talk to people and learn English. So that was really amazing.
How long was the contract for that type of thing?
So I had it for a year, but then we extended for another 6 months because they loved me and I loved where I was.
Yeah, and you were doing everything for this family, right?
Yes, I was. So again, my situation wasn't ideal with the family. It wasn't super smooth and, perfect, but I was in one of the best locations I could think of. So I just decided, I need to stay. I need to do what I have to do to just kind of be where I am because it's beautiful.
So were you able to apply for California specifically, or was it luck of the draw type of thing?
Exactly. So when I applied through agency in Ukraine, what they do, they have database of families all over America. So it could be Texas, it could be Alabama, it could be Idaho, it could be anywhere pretty much. And I was one of the fastest applicants to get contacted because I got contacted like second day, and it was a family from California. And actually I knew nothing about California. So next day I talked to my coworker and I said, hey, this family is contacting me and they live in California. And he was like, oh my God, go.
Movie stars everywhere.
Yes, well, because I really knew New York, I would say. I knew a lot about New York, but
Sure.
I had no idea what California is. So, what lifestyle is here and everything. So when I talked to him, to my colleague, he just got so excited. And he's been to Miami, he's been to New York, and he said it was his dream to be in California. And I was like, okay, it sounds good. So I decided to respond to a family that contacted me. We talked back and forth, and we just decided it was a match. So that's how I came here.
Now, once you came to America, what were kind of your general impressions getting here? Was it what you expected? Was it wildly different?
So yes, it was, it was just crazy coming here because even though I applied through, I thought was the best agency in Ukraine, and I think it was. I paid extra fees to just go with the best agency, and you still really don't know where you're going and who's going to meet you. Even my dad, I think maybe being, kind of like from the other generation, he gave me some money and he said, if something happens, just hop on the plane and come back. Because really, you really don't know. I was picked up by the house dad, the family that I lived with, by the father. It was late flight. I was picked up by him at the airport and kind of, for me, it's a success story, but I don't know, could have gone wrong.
Had you done any international traveling before then?
I haven't been. That was my first flight.
First flight ever.
Well, yes, it was. Well, not the first flight ever. It was my second flight ever. So I took one flight in Ukraine, just local, just to be on the plane because I was always horrified of heights of airplanes. But my desire to come here was so strong that I just decided to, you have to do it.
Yeah, so that just amplifies the whole, strangeness and unknown of that
Yes,
experience.
it was odd, but to be honest with you, so I landed, it was like 10 or 11 p.m. And I remember just driving in the car with him and I was just looking at the roads and I was like, wow, they're so smooth. They're so nice. Like,
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
it's like you take it for granted here, but
No
it was
traffic.
everything was new. Yes, no traffic. And I was like, wow, that's beautiful. So I really got to their house. It was late. They just told me, okay, go to your room. It's everybody's sleeping. So next morning, I remember I woke up and I met the family and they said, okay, you have, just go walk around. And I was just blown away.
Just by the affluence and
Just, the nature, the weather. I walked outside. So I came in February. So Ukraine was like slush, mud, snow, rain, cold, just really the worst weather. And here I woke up and I walk outside, it's sunny, there's a bunch of flowers everywhere, the birds are chirping, and I was like, oh my god, like where am I? Did I just like die and I woke up in a dream? It was beautiful. I remember the smell of the air. I was just pretty much in love at first sight, and I kind of carry that feeling to this day. I love it here.
yeah, well, I mean, you were very fortunate. You landed in like a beautiful part of the,
Yes.
peninsula south of San Francisco, and
Mm-hmm.
just sort of very, I mean, people do come from all over the world to see sort of this, beautiful, lush region of California. So I would say you
Yes.
were
Mhm.
very lucky. You know,
But also I wanted to say that being here, I can say so much about this area and share with people. But when I was in Ukraine and I was researching where I'm going, town, you really don't get a lot of information. It's kind of like they say, yes, it's Silicon Valley. And I was like, okay, what exactly, that entitles like, okay, I know what Silicon Valley is, but really, what is the lifestyle there? You can't really find a lot of useful information. It's kind of like facts, okay, San Francisco is one of the largest cities and and all that, but you don't really get the feeling of life here until you get here.
yeah, the attitude, and
Exactly.
it's completely different up there from where I am down in Los Angeles. I mean, or Central Valley, San Luis Obispo would be completely different. I think that in general, is something that foreigners I encounter don't understand about America, right? You kind of
Yes.
we get lumped into this. You're American, so you're this way, and you're like, well, even within our state, we're so different from town to town and city to city, and
Absolutely.
it is really not a. You don't get an accurate sense of that.
Mentality is different here as well. I would say the variety of cultures you get here is really incredible. And I was not aware of that until I got here. And obviously, my first goal was to just master my English, just to really, I I refused to make friends with Russian or Ukrainian speaking people because I knew once I start speaking my native language, I'm not going to learn English. So, but the funny part was every person I met living where I lived, they were from somewhere else. It was crazy. I had about 20 plus friends and they were all from different countries. There were like Chinese people, there were French, German, you name it all. It's like, but not a single native speaking American person. And that was kind of crazy to me. Yes, I had a lot of fun. I went to like other schools for classes, but I did not expect this to be such a melting pot.
Especially the Bay Area.
Yes.
I think that the tech just brought in so many different cultures and land grabbing, as a realtor now, just
Exactly. Yes.
the value of property, I think, brought a lot of people, and it is so diverse. We really kind of take for granted the amount of diversity in Northern California because a lot of the U.S. doesn't really have that diversity.
Exactly. But I'd rather be here than anywhere else. That's actually what I enjoy because you get, restaurants with cuisine from all over the world. You get people who look so different. And it's really, I think it just brings up the beauty of this area, really, to see such variety of everything.
Yeah, and I would say from my experience, for the most part, people get along. I mean, of course, there are people that are prejudiced or racist or this and that, but for the most part, I think it is a pretty accepting area of diversity.
This area, yes, definitely is. I don't think it could be other way here because we have such variety. And I know for a fact it's not like this all over the place. Um, especially where I come from, like Ukraine, Russia, all those areas, they're not so open-minded. So I was happy to see people from all over the world here. When I came, I felt welcomed, and I always welcomed everybody as well. So I feel like I'm in the right place.
Yeah. So coming over, what was it like kind of emotionally making that decision, possibly knowing this is it? I might be leaving Ukraine for good, not necessarily to go back and visit, but I might never be living here again.
It was a bit stressful because I was just so overwhelmed with excitement. Um, and I kind of took it as adventure at first. But I remember day one, I realized I'm not going to go back. I've just felt so happy. And I did not get disappointed as days were going by. So I think the hardest thing for me was to actually bring it to my family's attention that that's my intention to stay here. That was the hardest thing because they expected me to come back. They were, waiting for me. I have a beautiful family back in Ukraine, and
They
we all love
thought
each other.
this
Yeah.
might just be a holiday for you. You go
Yeah.
for a
So,
year and come
I was
back.
extremely close with my younger sister. And I remember she was asking me every day, how many days is left? How many days is left? And I would tell her, but I knew I wasn't going to come back. So that was really kind of hard to lie to her, but I didn't want to break her heart quite yet.
So you kind of sugar-coated it for some time.
Absolutely. But it's funny because my mom would hear me say, yes, I'm coming. But she told me she knew I wasn't going to come back. She said she could see it in my face. She could see it in my eyes that, I'm going to stay.
And she probably deep down really hoped you would stay and sort of make
Well,
a better life for
every
yourself.
parent, I think, just wants to see their child happy. And she saw how happy I was to be here. So that's it. Yeah.
Obviously, you ended up meeting my brother and marrying him and having 2 children. And also, you sort of did this in a time of our former political administration. So I think in a lot of ways, you got very lucky and sort of fast-tracked your way to citizenship, which maybe isn't so easy today.
Probably, yes.
Can you describe that process a little of becoming a U.S. citizen? What was that like?
Yeah, I had J1 visa, which is for visitors. And in order for me to stay here, I had to go. There were 2 choices, either go to college or marry someone. And obviously, for me, marrying someone was not an option because that's just something I want to do once in my lifetime, hopefully. That's the goal. But I take it very seriously as well. So that option was just disregarded. And I applied for college. I went to college here. And that's when I knew for sure once I'm applying for college, I'm going to stay here and I'm not going to go back. So that was the point where I decided, okay, it's been over a year of me being here. I wasn't dating anyone. I didn't want to get into a relationship. I didn't want to get my heart broken. I didn't want to break anybody's heart, right? People get used to each other. And so I wasn't dating anyone for the first year of being here. And once I knew I was staying, I was like, okay, I guess I'm open now, open-minded to meeting that person. And I met my husband. Once he found out the fees I was paying in college, he just was shocked. He was like, oh my God, this is unreal. And he told me, he was like, we have to get married. So So it was kind of like a joke at first when he said it, but we actually ended up getting married shortly after.
And so from that point, what did you have to do to become a citizen?
So it was a simple process from then on because we met his attorney, immigration attorney, and she just did all the paperwork for us. She said it's easy. You just apply, you submit certain forms to immigration, and that's it. They just review it. We had a process of going through interview where they check to make sure, okay, my intentions are real. I'm here actually not for the green card, but to make, to start a family. And yeah, everything checked out, and I'm here 10 years later.
And what was the citizenship test like? You probably know more about American history than most Americans.
So, yeah, it's a book. So to get ready for the test, you just get a book, and it's about 100 questions about American history, some facts, some dates, and then you also have to read some sentences. So they check to make sure, okay, you can actually speak English or you can read, and that's it, really. So that was kind of really easy for me. I think my husband was nervous more than I was.
Well, I think your English was always better than you imagined. It's just,
It was okay. Yeah. I think it would be harder for somebody who never spoke English. And then just some people get here and they still are surrounded by, people who speak their language. So they never really learn English that well. So that would be challenging for sure. For me, it was pretty easy.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't done enough research on it, but I'm not sure it's such a simple process anymore. I think they've really made it more difficult for people.
Well, it's still similar. I just think it takes longer now.
The process.
And from what I've heard, there are some, they're cutting down some programs and they're changing some stuff, and fees are increasing to apply for all these changes. So I think it's still possible. It just definitely would take much longer now.
I want to shift gears back to Ukraine. This is a random question because this happened before your time, but obviously the most famous event of Ukrainian history, modern history, is the Chernobyl disaster. How, if at all, did Chernobyl or the aftermath affect your upbringing and your life?
My sister was actually, she was almost a year old. And when that happened, I'm from the capital, from Kiev, and it's about 2-hour drive from Chernobyl. So when everything happened and people started getting some news about how horrible it is, my dad put my mom on the train and sent her to our grandma's, which was like 6 hours away. So we were farther from the epicenter, I guess. However, my mom was pregnant shortly after, like maybe less than a year after, which Chernobyl still had a strong effect on, everybody's health and everything. So I think I ended up being okay, I would say.
Still not sure.
I don't glow in the dark, but I know that it affected a lot of people because people really didn't know what to do when radiation was affecting people, right, in health and children. So I know that a lot of people died from it. Many, many people. They kept dying years later. They were severely affected. Some people didn't get affected, strangely. So that really had a huge impact on people's health,
Yeah, your dad, shout out to Oleg, was telling me all kinds of wild things about the experience, and basically that all the women in the city were, like you said, trained or bussed out. And so it was just a city of men. And basically every able-bodied man was sent close to the disaster area.
Absolutely, yes.
And he said he knew something about like the Geiger, the radiation counters and stuff, and claims that he told the guy, like, this isn't safe, I'm not going. And
yes, that was really nuts, yes.
He also said, they were under Soviet guns saying, no, you're going. And, he described having to dig trenches for people's bodies and things of that nature. And of course, your dad likes to embellish a little here and there. But it was pretty wild hearing kind of his retelling of the story. And also sort of the folklore that comes out of it, right? He was saying that he knows many friends who have died since, and everyone who doesn't drink alcohol has died, but those that drink, have
Yeah,
resilience and sort
that's
of,
his excuse.
yeah, these, but is Ukraine that type of place with sort of these folk legends and sort of,
Well, so yeah, I mean, one thing about drinking, yes, when you don't have a choice, when you know you're not protected by government, by equipment, by anything, you don't have a choice. You just have to do what they tell you to do. And to escape from that horror, you drink, right? So I could kind of understand that. People were not protected. Yes, people were sent to work to dig all this radiating chemicals and everything. It was really, really messed up. Nobody had protection gear. And people who had it, it wasn't really working much. So yes, I know a lot of kind of like stories like that. But actually, Chernobyl movie that came out a few years ago, I would say it's pretty accurate. It's great.
have you seen the HBO show? Because
We actually started and we only made through one episode, and my husband got depressed.
it's very haunting, but it's
Yes.
very, very well done.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure it's great.
I would highly recommend that. But what are your thoughts on like tourists going to Chernobyl currently?
Crazy. People are crazy. And even my cousin who lives in Australia, she called me a few years ago and she said, let's go to Chernobyl. And I said, are you crazy? I think I had one child at that point, and I said, no way, I want to have more kids. Because me and my husband wanted to have two children. I said, no way, I'm going to Chernobyl. And she said, well, but they do these tour buses and it's safe and all that, but there is no way it's safe. I mean, they have that cascade over explosion area, but I think it's only supposed to protect environment for 100 years, plus minus. And
And they're
we
saying like 100,000 years of radioactive
absolutely,
afterlife.
it's
Yeah.
insane, and radiation is real and it's still there. So I have no intention of going there. People do it, and I feel like there's always crazies who will do something strange and crazy just for the heck of saying I did it.
Yeah, that extreme tourism, right?
Yes, it's not me. Yes.
Yeah, the other tourist spot is that the Tunnel of Love, right? On Instagram, everyone's posting those photos. Isn't that's actually out kind of by where your mom lives in the village, right?
So, yes, I've heard about that, but I haven't been there. Maybe because I haven't been in love when I was in Ukraine. So I had no excuse of going there. But yeah, it's popular. Um, I can't say that it's like the top one, but it's one of those, places you should go.
Also in the middle of nowhere, right? I think.
Exactly. So you kind of go there and then what? Yeah. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the difference there between the village and the city life, and sort of maybe traditionally how that was, but how that's changed in the past decade or so.
It hasn't changed that much. The only difference I would say today, more people from villages, younger people, they go for summer jobs abroad. They go somewhere else and they come back. But other than like infrastructure, it hasn't really changed much. I've seen negative, I would say, impact of last 30 years on environment, because growing up, I would spend summers in the village with my grandma, and we had this beautiful river. It was clean. The forest was beautiful, lush and green. We would swim in the water. It was just everything was beautiful, full of fish, full of beautiful rocks. And now it's really kind of disappointing what we see now. So my mom,
What is that? Overpopulation,
um,
pollution,
I would say,
trash, things like that.
yeah, a lot of trash, definitely. I don't think also people are educated, or maybe they don't care enough to protect environment, because people just throw everything they want in the river. They just dump everything they want in the river. Chemicals. I think pesticides are a big, factor. It's just different. River is much smaller than it's used to be. It's dirty. You're not supposed to swim there. It's a lot of forestation is just gone. Um, I don't know if you have seen latest news in Ukraine. They had a lot of floods
No,
in
I
the
haven't
western
seen
part
that.
of Ukraine. It's been crazy because forests are gone. All the wood is transported somewhere else abroad, sold, big money's made, but it affects environment for sure.
Yeah, kind of that short-sightedness, right? Of make money now, but no thought to 10, 20, 50 years in the future.
Absolutely. And I feel like, you see a lot of that in many countries. I mean, look at, I don't know, Mexico, right? It's beautiful, gorgeous country, but government makes money and people are super poor. So I feel like it's kind of in a way it's similar with Ukraine, where we have very wealthy people who control things, who do whatever they need to do to make money. And there is just people who just, are poor, or I would say like middle to lower middle class. And I think it's also comes from education. A lot of people are not educated to, care about things around them, to save stuff, to not use so much plastic. Like for me, it's a big thing. I try to save planet, I guess, with what I think is right, but it hurts my heart to see trash all over and just plastic consumption.
Yeah, it is out of control, especially, when you see just these like garbage patches in the ocean or
It's sad. Yes.
most places in Africa or India, and they're just burning, plastic up into the environment. But I think for so many places that, there's no other option for them. They don't have infrastructure to get rid of garbage and things. But like you said, I mean, it's the education, right?
But you know what? I also kind of thought for myself. Just when I grew up in Ukraine, I remember every other commercial was about Coca-Cola, for example.
Oh,
And
they're
people,
everywhere.
yeah, it still is. And people just drink soda right and left. Luckily for myself, my mom never gave us soda. So I did not grow up drinking that much. But everybody around me always drank Coca-Cola, Fanta, Sprite, all this stuff. And just imagine the amounts of plastic that's consumed. Not to mention that Coca-Cola comes from United States, right? So really they supply it to countries that are not educated enough, that's not good for you to drink all that stuff, to consume it in volumes that they're providing you with, right? So
Yeah, 46 grams of sugar per bottle and
per sip. Yes.
yeah.
Well, so the same thing with Africa and like Mexico. You see these poor countries and there's piles of these cans and, all the stuff that they shouldn't really be consuming. That's not good for humans to eat that stuff anyway and drink that stuff. So
Okay, I want to talk about a little more current stuff in Ukraine. There's a general knowledge of the war that began with Russia in 2014. There's a fabulous documentary, I'm not sure if it's still on Netflix, called Winter on Fire. I highly recommend anybody watch that. It's a tremendous documentary, incredibly insightful. It brought me to tears after going there. But most people don't really know what the hell happened or what is going on. Essentially, Russia annexed part of Crimea, which you could tell me a little more about, but I believe it's a very fertile and like popular touristy area, a wealthy piece of land, so to speak. And to this day, there's still an ongoing war. People are getting shot and dying, and sort of there's two sides. There's Ukrainians that are pro-Russian. There's the Ukrainian army. What can you say about what's happening there? And do you keep tabs on it, or is it kind of too stalemated and too depressing to really follow?
so yeah, I used to keep tabs quite often, but it's just kind of it got to the point where it's, I would say, steady, not going anywhere, but it just same things keep happening every day pretty much. So there's not much to keep track of anymore. Other than the fact that we just know what happens and you just kind of you know what's coming tomorrow, what kind of news are coming tomorrow is coming tomorrow. So what happened, I think, is I'll just give you kind of my perspective, my view. um, Ukraine has always been, I would say, affected or influenced a lot by Russians. And, since Soviet Union, when everybody separated, since we're bordering Russia, and I think we were kind of like a good neighbor in the fact that we are, we have a lot of produce, we have a lot of minerals, we have a lot of good stuff in our soil. So it's very good land.
Economic allies, yeah,
And
because of the resources.
yes, from economic perspective, Ukraine is great. we have a lot to offer. So I think we were like on good terms with Russia for a long time. However, there were a lot of Russian politics involved in Ukrainian politics. Once people were not happy with the president that was elected, because, elections were just not transparent at all. A lot of people got pissed off, people started protesting, and pro-Ukrainian president was ruling the country for a few years. Everybody was happy. But the next election term, Russians put their guy, and that really made a lot of people mad. They were mad for a while, but then they kind of, decided, okay, let's see how it works out. And Europe at that point was offering Ukraine a lot of good things, no visa entry, partnerships, and all that stuff. And there was a point where there was a really important meeting between European Union councillors and Ukrainian president. And they were supposed to sign something that would just open the doors for Ukrainians to be part of Europe.
Yeah, they were trying to get in the EU, right?
Yes. And our president didn't sign it. He said no. And a lot of people just got so mad. It was kind of like, okay, what's happening now? So at that point, there was a lot of revolutionary protests and stuff. And that's where Russians decided to strike, I guess. You strike your enemy when they're weak.
but very peaceful protests, and a
Yes,
lot of
they were
young
peaceful.
people. And
yes, they were just like, okay, we're not happy. This was not cool. What's happening, right? So people were just kind of voicing their opinions, but Russians striked, I guess, and they took over Crimea because not only because it's a beautiful land, but also it's a port to military ships. And prior to this, they were paying some fees to Ukrainian government. Now they don't have to pay, right? They get to own all that land. They get to port. They get to do all sorts of things without paying anything. So we think it was a part of, okay, what do we need for us to really be in charge? And that was really good place for them. So they took over that. Ukrainian military was very weak at that point, pretty much non-existent, because president who was pro-Russian, he just made sure that military was as weak as possible. So really people couldn't fight back. So Russians took over Crimea. And that's where we are right now. So Ukrainians don't want to give up any more territories. However, Russians took over some more close to Crimea, a lot of eastern parts. But Ukrainians they just don't want to give up anymore. So that's pretty much where the war is right now. It's kind of like back and forth.
For a time, the U.S. was supposed to step in and sort of be an ally and, essentially laid down and did nothing.
Well, so that's the thing. U.S. was supposed to help. Ukrainians were hoping that European countries would help. But if that came down to happening, I think that would provoke World War III, possibly, because that's involvement of all countries in the world pretty much. So I feel like Europeans are just kind of watching it. If Russians get any closer to the border, to the Western border, then Russians are going to be too close to Europe. I think that's when they would do something to really interfere. But as of now, they're like letting Ukrainians fight their own fight.
Yeah, and I mean, really, you really hear nothing about it in the news. And maybe, like you said, because things haven't really changed. But I didn't really get a sense of it until the first time we came and visited, and we went to that really amazing war museum under the Motherland statue. It was incredible. I mean, they had graphic images of the soldiers fighting and dying and tanks blown up, and it really humanized sort of the fight. I think it's very easy to, put a headline up and say, oh, it's Russia versus Ukraine, and oh, it's over this and that. But, when you see sort of the human impact it's having and talking to people, how they were affected, I know even within households, right, there's division. So it's
Absolutely.
very much a civil war where you have all Ukrainian citizens, but even within one household, you could have pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian. So how has that kind of affected just the landscape of the country?
Different. And I could even say for my family, two of my sisters live in Russia. And when the war started, only one of my sisters lived in Russia. And it was interesting because what she was telling us in Ukraine, it was just kind of mind blowing to us. It was just absurd, just ridiculous things she was saying, but she really believed it because that's what media was showing in Russia. So I think really, I believe that it's very easy for media to brainwash people. And I can't say that we were arguing so much with my sister over that, but we just realized, oh my God, it's really real, people just could change their opinion so fast and so quickly and just believe it. So really, it's a common situation where families are just, arguing inside, kind of like you said, civil, right? Because mom is saying one thing, dad is saying another one. Where do you meet and who's right?
And what information are you getting to make an
Exactly.
informed
And
decision
again, in
about it?
Ukraine, we're getting also information that media shows us. So it's never just the real facts, pure facts that are facts. It's kind of, everything is changed. Everything is presented in the way that somebody needs. So, yeah.
Yeah, I won't berate the point, but I think it does parallel what's happening in the US right now. You have a lot of division, you have a lot of people blaming the media, a lot of people saying things are hoaxes, it's fake news. I think the main difference here is we have the freedom to search multiple sources, to think critically, to find different sources and to fact check ourselves, where maybe in Russia or Ukraine, you're sort of saying, here's your news, like take it or leave it. Would you agree with that?
So I would say Ukraine is more like America in that sense, because we still have, different media coverages that really cover different sides of the stories. So you could kind of really compare, at least. You could compare, good and bad or two sides of the story. Kind of like here, right? Some people are pro-president and some people aren't. So some people are providers, some people say, okay, that's not real. So you could kind of make your own decision. In Russia, I think it's a little bit different. It's probably more like China,
Yeah,
it's
state
just
sponsored. This is the truth. Take it.
exactly. So
It's interesting. I won't get more political than that. All right, last question I have about Ukraine. What was it like having my entire family come out and visit?
it was incredible. So your family is amazing. I love everybody in your family. I think it was more stressful for me to bring you all there because just seeing the quality of life here versus there, I just didn't want you guys to be disappointed. So it was a lot of mental and physical preparation for me to bring you all there, just coordinating everything. I wanted everything to go perfect. And of course it wasn't, because the more you want something to be perfect, the more likelihood it's going to just, crumble and crush. It wasn't as great as it wasn't as smooth, I guess. But a second time when I went, I wasn't prepping and everything just was perfect. So I feel like I tried too hard, the first time. But your family was incredibly amazing. And I was just kind of stressing out, thinking, okay, what if they don't like something? What if they don't like city? What if they don't like people? What if they don't like food? And you guys just liked everything, or you pretended to like everything.
No, I mean, I think, well, I've done, more traveling than probably my entire family combined. But, I think there was a little bit of culture shock with some
Yeah.
things, but good and bad, right? I
Yes.
think, especially for my mom and stuff, the city was a lot more metropolitan than she had imagined, and it was more refined and sophisticated. But then, the reverse of that, it was like she couldn't fathom like the poor road conditions and like the traffic
Yes.
and the pollution and different things that like whatever her perception was, I think she thought more village life everywhere. And then,
Yes.
you were maybe worried that she would find the village shocking. And I think maybe it was in some of its simplicity for her, but also I think, she was pleasantly surprised by the simplicity of the living off the land and the farming and like just sort of how simple living can still exist, as a lifestyle. So yeah, there was
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, yeah, your mom definitely took it well. I think I was most stressed out about your mom because, hotels are not the best where we stayed, right, in that area. So I remember next day she's like, there's no curtains on the
Yeah.
windows. Like they were up at 4 or 5 a.m. And I
Our
was like,
air
oh my God.
conditioner doesn't work. You're like, you have the only air conditioner in the whole
Yes.
hotel.
Actually, that was the only hotel that had air conditioner. And actually, that was one of the only rooms that had air conditioner
Yeah,
inside.
that was the presidential suite.
Yeah, I mean, we got her the best we could, but again, it was, of course, kind of like a shock. She wasn't complaining; she just took it well. But I was like, oh my God, she's gonna think it's horrible.
No, it
Yeah,
was
but
good. I thought it went
it all
well. And you guys were feeding us like we were like a Shah or something. It was like just tables full of just I've never had a feast quite like that, especially when we got to the village.
exactly. People like to eat. People like to cook and
Some
feed
fresh
people.
goat
You
kills,
just
and
kind of have to.
your dad killed some geese for
Exactly.
us.
Yeah.
And
My dad was ready to kill anything for you guys. Remember, he offered one time to go to like somebody's farm and kill like a lamb or
he
something and
wanted me
cook.
to kill a lamb, and I was like, no
Oh my God.
thanks.
I know. And I was like, Dad, that's enough killing.
I'll eat it, but I don't really want to get my hands dirty. I know that's bad.
I don't want to see that.
Yeah. I mean, even an adult sheep, I don't think I'd want to deal with the mess.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for enlightening me and the listeners more about your experience in Ukraine. Now I want to move on to a rapid fire.
Wow.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'm just going to spout out a few questions and just tell me quickly just the first thing that pops into your head.
Oh my God. That's okay. I'm ready.
All right. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Dirty people, like dirty clothing and smelling bad.
Bad
I
hygiene?
guess. Yes.
Okay. Window or aisle seat on the airplane?
Window.
You like to look out?
I just like to just stay there and not be bothered.
Okay. The first place specifically that you visited outside of Ukraine was where?
It was Poland, actually. So I had a really short trip. It was like one day for business. We literally drove there. We went to the factory, and then a day later we went back. So I can't say it was visiting, but I had like lunch meal there. That's it. So I didn't see much, but that was the first place.
Okay, you could run for how far or how long without stopping to rest?
I guess it depends on the goal. If I'm running away from something dangerous, I'll run forever. I'm that stubborn.
I mean, just if someone said, okay, go for a run, how far would you get before you had to stop?
I mean, I could probably run for half hour nonstop at a good pace.
Okay, so a few miles.
I guess, yeah.
Do you still use the metric system?
No. So I actually trained myself to get used to American system, and it was difficult at first, but I think it like took me 2 to 4 months to completely adjust.
Do you think Americans should adopt the metric system with the rest of the world?
Absolutely. It's a no-brainer.
We'll never do
Please,
it because,
please.
we're number one, but
Absolutely. And that's the way to make money as well, Make things different so people have to buy your things. That's kind of smart from economic perspective, but it's from practical, it's not the best.
The perfect vacation is how long?
I would say 8 to 10 days.
I guess it depends how far you're going, right? Or
Yes.
I feel like if I'm going international, I want like minimum 10 days to 2 weeks.
I would, yeah, like if I'm thinking international, like visiting Ukraine or Europe or both, it would be anywhere between like a little over 2 weeks to 3 weeks, no more than 3 weeks though. And if it's local here, like let's say if I went to Hawaii, I would want to spend 8 to 10 nights.
Yeah, that's a nice long trip.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to order in a fancy restaurant?
I think filet mignon and salad and some nice bread and potatoes. I love potatoes.
Wait, who doesn't love potatoes?
Yes.
Do you have a favorite way to eat potato?
No. All of them. I love all of them.
Okay, true or false? You didn't teach Robbie and the kids how to speak Ukrainian so you could talk privately without them understanding.
Absolutely false. I I think it would be too much to handle for them. I didn't want to confuse them because I'm teaching my kids Russian. So I just want to stick to one and just have it done right versus having kids mix up Russian and Ukrainian words and never really getting a good grasp of either one. So, yeah.
Do you think the Ukrainian language is dying?
No, I think because of what's happening right now, it's actually prospering more than ever. It's coming back stronger than ever. And I'm happy for that because, every country needs to have its language that's cherished and appreciated. So I'm happy about that.
Okay.
It's coming back.
Yeah. It's making a resurgence, especially in Kyiv and the West.
Yeah, it was dying. I must say it was dying about 10 years ago when I was living in Ukraine before the war started. More people spoke Russian than Ukrainian. But after the war started, it kind of, pushed people to really become more nationalist and just bring back Ukrainian culture.
Yep. I can second that, having been there a couple times. All right. Let's see how much you know about your native country's history. I have some trivia for you.
Oh, no.
All right. In 1853, what was first invented by a local pharmacist in the city of Lviv?
Invented. Pharmacist. Charcoal?
That's probably a close guess. The gas lamp was apparently invented in the city of Lviv by a pharmacist in 1853.
It's interesting. My mom still has some gas lamps. They're awesome.
True or false? Kyiv hosts the world's deepest metro line.
No, false. Oh, deepest.
Deepest.
Yes, I think so.
That is true. It is 100.
Arsenalna?
It was something I couldn't pronounce, so I didn't write it down. It was a hyphenated line, but it's 105.5 meters deep. The deepest metro line in the world, which is impressive because when I went to Japan, I went on a few that it felt like I was going to the center of the earth. So it must be pretty incredible.
That's awesome, yeah. Wow.
Here's another true or false. Chicken Kyiv originated in the city Kyiv.
False.
That is false. It was believed to have been brought by the Russian aristocracy obsessed with French cuisine. What is chicken Kyiv?
So it's chicken fillet, flattened out. You put inside a big cube of butter, a big cube of cheese.
Sounds French.
You roll it all up and you dip it in some breadcrumbs.
Okay.
Deep fry it.
Oh, wow.
I know. And that's it.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Ukraine is second to Russia in what two things? Hint, think size.
Largest probably country in, on the continent. Because I would say Russia is number one and Ukraine is probably,
that is correct. That's one.
Okay.
And second thing?
Maybe population-wise?
No, military size. Ukraine has the second largest military to Russia.
Okay, size doesn't always matter. I think in this case, it's quality.
Okay.
Because I'm surprised to hear that Ukrainian military is that large, but I just wish they were better equipped. Because like you mentioned previously, you were talking about museum in Ukraine that, showed all the tanks and all sorts of stuff. And actually what I was impressed, or I would say negatively surprised, was I saw ammunition of soldiers these days. And what they were wearing was just really not up to any standards. It was just very primitive. So yeah, I wish we had smaller military, but better financed and better equipped and protected.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're fighting for and unfortunately not getting. All right, my final question for you is just, what's your favorite thing about traveling? What do you think is the most enriching thing of why people should travel?
First of all, to educate themselves on different cultures, step out of your comfort zone, see how people live, because I think a lot of Americans actually never leave country, and you probably know that. And we just, especially here, people are just kind of in a bubble in a way. So I really think it's very useful for people to go to places that are not as developed, just to really become more appreciative of what we have here. Just knowing cultures, it's amazing. I also feel like every time you travel, you meet people, kind of it enriches you as a person. You grow mentally and you can always learn from something new. So I would say just it makes you smarter. It makes you more aware of what's happening in the world. It gives you perspective on how things could be. I just love seeing something new every time. I don't like actually going to the same places twice, which I do, but I'd rather go to a new place every
Yeah,
time.
it's a big world, right? I wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said there. So thank you so much for joining me. And
Thank you for
thanks for
having me.
tuning in, listeners. I hope it's been enlightening. And say hey to Robbie and the kiddos for me.
I will. Thank you.